This is a Momentum Media production.
Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show, the podcast by investors for investors.
Well, good everyone. How you going? Phil Tarrant. I'm the host of the Smart Property Investment Show. Hope you're well. Today, having a chat with some of my most favourite people in the world. Probably ask them sometimes; they think otherwise. But property managers, who for property investors, the absolute heartbeat of smart investing. I always talk about A teams, and this is your accountant and your buyer's agents, your mortgage brokers. That's all good when you're acquiring property and holding property, but managing your property is a very, very important component and often overlooked. People sort of think it's the boring end of property investment, and that is the day-to-day rigor of having tenants, finding tenants, keeping tenants, and making sure money's landing in your bank account every single month or every single week or every single day, depending on how you like to get paid. We like property management and property managers here at Smart Property Investment. As you all know, we liked it so much that we invested in property management technology company called Managed. So we're pretty involved in it. And any chance I get to chat with property managers, I always grab that because they know better than anyone else what's going on from a portfolio point of view and a market point of view. And they also have one of the toughest jobs in Australia, I reckon. So be nice to your property managers. That's my hot tip. You don't want to be that client, that landlord who is a nuisance and a pest and doesn't get back to them on time and is sometimes belligerent and sometimes argumentative. Don't be that. Don't be that landlord. Be a good landlord. We're going to chat about that today amongst a whole bunch of other stuff, particularly what's happening in Hervey Bay. For many people, a very attractive holiday destination, but there's a lot of property investors who have invested up there. So joining me in the studio, Tara Bradbury. She's from Active Agents, relatively new organisation, but she's been in and around property management for a long time. Tara, how you going?
I'm really well, thank you. Thanks for having me. And sounds like it's all very busy in your world as well.
It's certainly very busy. And as I said, I like chatting with property managers. And I've got many of them because I have quite a large property portfolio. I wish I had one personally and they looked after everything, but that's not the nature of the beast. Maybe at some point in time that will happen. But in your spot of the world, everyone's moving up your way, I understand. Everyone's sort of leaving Sydney and Melbourne and heading up north to Queensland. Hervey Bay, which I think I've been to when I was a lot younger. I've been to Fraser Island, all that sort of stuff, on the way to probably the Bundaberg rum factory at some point in time. But people up your neck of the woods just seem to be happier than us Sydney-siders.
Look, I think that when you've got the ability to, walk out of your house and head down to the 17K stretch of Esplanade, which is all footpaths and there's beautiful parks and that for the kids, and it's fairly easy to get to. It doesn't have the same traffic build-up at this stage as if you're at Bondi, Beach, for example, and you'd find it challenging to get parking just to get onto the beach. We do have really beautiful coastline here and plenty of it that supports the demographic and population. But hey, that might continue to change over time as we know areas continue to grow and prosper. And that's certainly something that I would suggest that in this last 5 years that I have had Active Agents here in Hervey Bay, that we have seen some major changes. And, always best to focus on the positives. But as we all experienced during that time of the COVID lockdown, there were some negatives as well. But I think from that, we have had some significant growth in a few different areas, which is really exciting for our region.
So are you born and bred Hervey Bayan, if that's such a thing?
Technically not Hervey Bay. So I actually was born and raised in Maryborough, which is half an hour from Hervey Bay, but both areas make up what's called the Fraser Coast. And one would say that we do and we don't, but we tend to support each other in both regions. So Maryborough, which is where I grew up and started my real estate career, is more of your heritage style of property and Queenslanders and the post-war homes and that type of vibe and that as well. We've got the Mary River that runs through.
That's a lot more inland, isn't it? That's sort of like a more sort of historic, local, economic area we start off. Well, what happens up there? Is it sugarcane and stuff, or what's the industries up your neck of the world?
Yeah, we definitely have the train side as well across both. So EDI is one of the biggest ones up there, Hind Timber as well. And certainly still plenty of farmers and the sugarcane side and that. So there is a lot more of that type of growth. And what I will say, given I started my real estate career in 2002, was that we had in our rental portfolios a lot more bigger multiple property owners. So we tended to have a lot of owners that were out of area that had bought anywhere between 5 and 10 properties. And at the time when I first started in the industry in Maryborough, you could buy a house for $70,000. So those days are absolutely gone now. You can't really get even land for that price. But there were clients that were in a position to just keep buying, and over time each year they would just keep buying up properties, and quite a few of them were local. There's a lot of wealth in Maryborough, a lot of bigger families too, that people don't probably seem to recognise as much. But yeah, it's very visible when you're working in a space of property management and you get to know other local property investors and those that are out of area and other local businesses. It's very connected because of the size of the population there. As such, being around that, I haven't kept up with the stats at the moment, but at the time it was around that, 20, 25,000 in population. And that's continued to grow, I'm sure, over the last 5 years, but it's on a smaller scale than Hervey Bay is at the moment.
Yeah, I need to sort of check myself sometimes, because you think of Australia as capital cities like Sydney, Melbourne and Perth, but it's a lot more diverse out there, and people live very different lives in Australia. So I'm long overdue a trip up to the Fraser
Coast.
Yeah. I remember it being lovely up there, and I'm sure I could find an excuse to travel up there and call it a tax deduction in the eyes of the tax man for reviewing property and real estate assets. But how did you end up in real estate? What's the backstory there?
So I went and did work experience during grade 12. Wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do when I finished school, but knew that I wanted to finish grade 12, have the graduation, have the formal, go to schoolies. I just thought, no need to race into the workspace. I was always a student I was never an excelling student, but always passed my subjects, and just really enjoyed that environment space. So I thought, well, I'll keep going right through to grade 12. A lot of my friends went away for university, so I was one of two out of a friendship circle of about 10 that stayed in the region. And from my work experience position, the lady who was working with me over that time through it was called TESS, so it was a training employment support service, and I went for an administrative role. She was one of my landlords in the first job that I received. So she knew that the business that she had her investment properties with needed a receptionist. I went for the interview and was offered the position as a receptionist. Then over time, after about 12 months, did my registration course and became a property manager. And the rest of the story continues from there through to the stages of where I am today.
It sounds like an apprenticeship that you've had over a number of decades, which is pretty empowering. Have all your friends who departed off to the big smoke to get university degrees, have they all returned back home now?
A couple of them, while some have returned home, it's worked out well for their career pathway. So I have some friends that are in medical, and it's allowed to bring them closer to the region and within the region, which is great because they have wanted to come back and be closer to family. They haven't wanted to remain in Melbourne and in Brisbane, and some have still stayed in those locations and have started families as well. But their families are still here, so they do tend to come back and go, oh gosh, this is just so much easier, the lifestyle here with kids. So I know that they're in a bit of that conundrum now that they've started a family as such, but I would just say that they use it as a great opportunity to be able to come home and rest and have mum and dad help with their kids so they can have some free time as well. So there's, always bonuses.
Yeah, it sounds like a sort of place where you'd have pretty nice work-life balance. I'd sort of jumped on Google Maps and just refamiliarised myself with the area before jumping on. I went, it looks pretty nice up there. And tell us about Active Agents. So you've been in real estate a long time, but relatively new business. Do you just do property management, or you do everything else?
So we started Active Agents April 2019, and so it's been 5 years now this year. Effectively, it was introduced to the area purely property management, and the reason for that was that what I saw as a weakness within our area is that we do have a lot of people that come to our region, especially as an example, medical base, that we're considered a regional area for them to get their accreditations to go on to the next stage of what they're wanting to achieve. And they try to apply for rental properties, couldn't get through because they had to go and view the property, or they had to do a paper-based application. And I was starting to see that we were actually knocking back amazing people that we should really be inviting, to this region to help, because we need those people as we get older, to help in different areas, teachers, police, fire and ambulance, all those key areas. So that was, I guess, the background as to why I started it. I wanted to present something that was different. And the managed platform, from memory, it was released in August 2018 and went through a beta testing kind of phase around there where there were agents already on the platform. And then we come on at April 2019, and the main attraction to me for it was how they process their payments and the ability to run an operation that can be more focused on working with property managers that are working on the areas that are important for the property. We always talk about that in the office is what's the best decision for the property. And yeah, it's allowed me to then work with those that have been within my team and are still within my team to teach them how to do property management to ensure that the property is managed effectively. And I feel that that's something that, we have lots of different technology out there now. There's a lot there that we can use to make sure that we can automate the key areas that we want to automate and be face-to-face and be in the coal face and communicate well as human beings in the areas that we should be communicating in.
And that's the core discipline of a very good property manager. Technology now should be able to manage the process. And what Tara's talking about there is Manage, which is the platform we invested to, which is sort of directly automated with payments, remove trust accounting at a real estate transaction, which is good. But it sounds as though you've built your business with an eye towards sort of a civic duty of actually moving to the coast up there an attractive proposition by facilitating people to find places to live in. That's pretty important. I'd like to sort of understand a little bit the type of landlords you have up there. We'll just go to a quick break. Everyone stay with us back in a moment. Welcome back, Phil Tarrant for Smart Property Investment, chatting with Tara from Active Agents. You go and check these guys out if you do have rental properties up in Hervey Bay and the surrounds. And how would you? So it's called the Fraser Coast, and that being Fraser Island. So what would be the north end of that? What would be the sort of the southern end of the Fraser Coast? It's probably a big sort of area, is it?
Yeah.
And do you service all of it?
No. Okay. So we are specifically driven in Hervey Bay. Now, when I actually, partway through my real estate career, I worked for a business called YB Prestige Properties, and we were across Maryborough and Hervey Bay, which is what kind of, stemmed me into the Hervey Bay market. And I thought, I actually really like it down here. It's much nicer being close to the water, and my career has continued from there. But to give you an idea of why I have decided to just stay specialised for the rent roll within Hervey Bay is it's a half an hour drive between both suburbs. And because I've had the opportunity to not only work within other businesses, but on a level of being a property manager, but also as a mentor and trainer in the industry as well, I could see that they were pain points of property managers having to be stuck in the car for an hour turnaround. So we have designed it that we don't go past Craignish. So I know of offices that are out in the Toogoom area, which is more west of us as such, and they are 25 minutes from us here in the centre of Hervey Bay, but I refer clients out to them. And they will do the same that are on the opposite end of town that are too far for them to service as such. So that's kind of a bit of a taste more of how we do things and why we do things, and to make sure that client communication is strong and you're not being just stuck on the road having to get to an appointment that you're doing a tenant viewing for half an hour one way and half an hour return. That's
really smart considered. And this goes to the point, and from the numbers I see, we're in dire need of more property managers in Australia where the shortage is considerable, and it's a hard job. And I sort of spoke earlier on in this podcast around how to be a good landlord, you need to actually understand some of the complications, trial and tribulations of actually being a property manager. I've never been a property manager, but I've spoken with lots of property managers. It's a tough job, and it can be relentless, and you're mainly dealing with problems all of the time. You never largely ever get thanked. And then when you exacerbate that with having to sit in a car for half an hour to go to a listing for 20 minutes and back again, it's fatiguing. And it's also really inefficient. So I could see why you've created your agency to really drill down to what you do well, and that is client interaction. Obviously, leveraging technology like Manage, and there's other really good technology that allows property managers to be more effective and efficient, but let technology do the heavy lifting for you, but then do the client connectivity and the engagement. And that probably makes happier property managers, and a happy property manager is a good property manager.
If you're happy for me to, just to add to that, there's plenty of software programs out there that you can do high automation with your tenant inquiries that come through. And I made the decision during COVID that I didn't want to step down that path. I didn't need to earlier on the days because we started from zero, so it was easy to keep that communication there. But we actually call the inquiries that come through, make them aware of our tenant viewings that are booked in. If we can't reach them on the phone, we'll have a preset email that we send to them that has a list of the open for inspections for the week that they can attend. because again, you've got to find the pain points that are within your marketplace and what your clients are experiencing. And across that property transaction, it's not just the landlord, it's the tenant and the tradesperson as well. And one of the biggest challenges for tenants is actually feeling safe and knowing that they can secure a home. There's still plenty of people that are stressed and a lot of pressure out there. And our market has a little bit more availability. It's still a tight market compared to what it did over the last couple of years. But I think those areas are really important, because then when those tenants become approved for a property with your business, they feel connected to the business. They don't feel as though they're just an automated transaction in the agency. That makes sense.
Mm. Let's talk about the Hervey Bay rental market at the moment. How many sort of, you probably don't know exactly, but how many rental properties, or how many properties would be available for rent within that sort of Hervey Bay area? I'm just trying to get a sense of the market.
Yeah, I would love to. I think we're going to have some more census stuff come out again shortly. I'd love to know the number of actual investment properties, because I think that's grown quite significantly in the last couple of years that are in the region. But what I will say that I have seen change in the last 12 months, so from mid last year, we are now consistently seeing that between 90 to 100 properties sitting on realestate.com that are available for rent. Whereas if you look at 2022 and then coming into 2023, you'd be lucky to have 30 or 40 properties. And that's across all options, being if it's a furnished house or unit, empty house, could be 4 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. So it was really exceptionally tight there between that 2022 and 2023. And then we noticed partway through 2023, it had kind of adjusted slightly, where we're anywhere up to 100 properties across all agencies in the region, with properties that are coming up for rent. So it's still a very positive investor market. I just explained to our clients that this is what you would expect. This is not our peak season. This is what you would expect to see available this time of year.
And do you get a lot of transient people coming in and out, or is there a lot of Airbnb type stuff? Is still a holiday area? Do a lot of investors just try and rent it out permanently sort of in the off seasons and then sort of make the big bucks there being on the holiday seasons?
I would say that has happened in the past. I'm not seeing personally as much of that now. There are a handful of agents in the area that do run holiday portfolios as well. I just really like my weekends, and I'm so heavily devoted to our rent roll during the week that if I added on a holiday portfolio, I just would not have a life. So for me, I knew it was just sticking with the straight residential, but there is a high Airbnb market here. They seem to have their own little community, I find, of them. And what I would suggest is, when we had the earlier stages, when COVID first happened in Australia, a lot of those Airbnb guys pulled out because no one could come to the area to rent these properties. So they did 3 and 6 month leases just to get by during that time. And we found that we have clients that have a handful of both. So they have permanent residential, but they do have Airbnb ones that they like to utilise themselves when they come to the area. So we assisted them in that process, and we knew it was only going to be a short space of lease, but we had tenants that were looking for that as well. So while they weren't getting the income that they would traditionally get from the Airbnb, they were at least getting something that was a per week income coming in on that property. And that only lasted about 6 months. And then those have continued back into that Airbnb space. But we have found some have just decided, you know what, I actually think I'm done with the extra work that's needed in there. We'll keep it with you. We'll keep renting it furnished and have it as a permanent rental now. So it kind of went a bit of both ways. I noticed where some probably looked and thought, oh, it's actually been a little bit easier just to completely hand it over and not feel they have to check on the cleaning from the cleaners and monitor all those things.
Yeah, you see and hear that a fair bit, where people get attracted to the much higher rent you may get Airbnb. But when you look at the time, energy and effort and additional costs of doing that with cleaning and problems and reviews and this and that, and a lot of people just go, stuff it. Net, I might make a little bit less having as a permanent rental, but I'm removing a lot of headaches. And, you see that a lot in these holiday areas, which is good also. And this is where a lot of the pressure is from local councils now. And you see it happening in places like Byron Bay, where they're trying to limit the amount there is out there because it is impacting on local economies. And there's arguments for both sides saying you need Airbnb accommodation to get people to go and visit there who spend money in restaurants and pubs and that sort of stuff. But then you actually need to house the people who provide all these services, particularly in holiday locations. And no doubt that's a hot topic when the local council gets together and they talk about economic advancement. But give me a sense, Tara, of the type of landlords who you are representing up there. Are they locals? Are they people in Brisbane who are trying to make some investments there, or there's a lot of out-of-towners?
I would say it's more diverse than what I have been used to in prior roles. We did notice, so across that 2022 year, our rentals increased in the way of rent income, but the sales market was almost like it was 3 to 4 months behind. So our rents were pushing up and up and up because we were losing stock and we just didn't have enough stock to work with. And just to give you an idea, numbers wise, you might have had a 4-bedroom home between that 2021 to 2022 that you would list for 450,000, and that had seen significant growth because years prior to that they might have bought this house and land package for 350,000, right? So they've sold it for 450 and thought, oh great, it's made 100,000. The rental return then was 500 a week. So we had quite a few buyers agents for investors that were just knew it and they were hot in our area. So we did see quite a lot of, and we do have a handful of international clients now from areas like Dubai, like the US, all different parts of overseas and England and that as well. That
Like
they
Aussie
have,
expats buying and back at home,
yes.
or yeah.
Yeah, and they're working overseas at the moment, and either they're choosing to stay there or they're coming back, whatever, their plans are, and they were buying in. And then that's when we saw that the rents have still kind of kept going up. So that same home achieved then $500 a week for that 4-bedroom home. Now it's achieving $600 a week, but it's likely that that property would be listed for sale for 620 or 650,000. So where that has been our challenge now is that we don't have that same really attractive rental yield, but the growth that we have happening in our region with the different developments and opportunities that are ahead of us, with Hervey Bay now being seen as it is, as what you're describing of what you see as someone who's looking from the outside from Sydney, you can see that there's absolutely opportunity. If you invest now and you might not have the rental yield you're hoping for now, that over time the growth will be there to support your investment. And that could be that next 5 to 10 years. So if you're looking at it as a long-term investor, it's looking very attractive. And then over that time, a couple of years ago, I would agree that there were plenty that had jumped in and jumped out because they could see that shift and change. And obviously long-term clever investors that they're watching those markets all the time, and they did see that Hervey Bay. And we did see that turnover too. We did see quite a few that were Australia-based that they knew they bought in and then they sold within 12 months, 18 months because they had an increase of about 100, 150 grand from their original purchase price. And that all kind of happened around that started 2021 through to 2022, around that,
Yeah,
that
and
time.
you sort of telegraphed a question I was going to ask. Are the buyer's agents still skulking about and picking and choosing properties, or are they out of Hervey Bay now? How do you actually get to Hervey Bay? Can you fly directly to Hervey Bay?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
you can. So you can from Sydney. They do have direct flights with Jetstar. It used to be Virgin as well, but it's just Jetstar now. And then you've got your Qantas Link flight that goes from Hervey Bay to Brisbane, and then you can choose off to Brisbane, your next location there.
The buyer's agents express, they all pile in and out.
Yeah, it's interesting because it was almost like there was the first round of them, and then I've noticed quite a few of those ones are still monitoring the Hervey Bay market, but they've really ventured over to WA and Perth and surrounding areas over there. They've not kind of tracked back because they were focusing with investor buyers that were more wanting that rental yield. That was their trend, whereas I have other ones that I'm working with now. Yes, they're paying, a higher price and the rental yield isn't quite there yet, but they have their clients more strategic on long-term growth versus short-term wins. So there's been the two different types of ones.
Did you enjoy working with buyers agents, or you just go?
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was just, for me, an easy growth process. And I know how to assist them and what they need. With the original ones that were coming through, we would do a video walkthrough and would send the information through to WhatsApp, and they would collate that video and present that to the investor. So that was our opportunity then to be able to, if that investor decided, yes, I've done this video walkthrough, I'm happy with what I can see here, they could call and ask us any questions. I was approached fairly early on, and I had that pretty stable for about 6 months. And then other real estate businesses could see me coming through their open homes, assisting the buyers agents with these processes. And then the principals of those businesses have worked out going, hang on, she's taking all the rental listings in our property management department's missing out because, yes, we're selling the property, but it's not feeding through to here. So I had about a 6-month advantage where I had embedded the relationship, and then the others finally caught on. But what I will say is that what I did notice, that those sales agents that were connected with them and knew what we were doing didn't always necessarily refer back to their own, businesses because they also had found that that relationship wasn't strong there and their clients weren't being looked after for the management side. So we did find that still some were coming our way. And that wasn't through any financial remuneration. That was just through respect for the work we were doing. And for us at the time, we didn't have a sales department. So we've only just started our sales department in the last 18 months.
Okay.
And I could then obviously clients that I would talk to. And for me, when they were wanting to sell, I would think about the sales agent that I was going to talk and introduce them to, because as we all know, every salesperson's different. So if I'm passing a recommendation on to my landlord, I'd like to hope that it can be someone they're aligned with and they feel really comfortable with. So I'd usually give them 2 or 3 examples to talk to.
And this is the point around the important role of property managers for investors. Yes, great advocate for managing your property, but at points at times when you want to buy, sell, increase, they know what's going on better than pretty much anyone. And even if you're looking to add value in your assets, I'd always start with the property manager and see, if you're going to spend money on renovating a place, well, why? And whether or not there's markets for what you want to create. So you should be really capitalizing on it. So make sure you have a tight relationship with your property manager. Tara, we're going to another break. When we come back, I just want to query a couple of other points. We'll back in a moment. Welcome back, Phil Tarrant from Smart Property Investment, chatting with Tara Bradbury. Now, are most of your landlords nice landlords, Tara? Do you have many that you sit there and you see the phone ringing, you go, oh, I don't want to talk to them? I imagine that's me sometimes, but with my property managers. Most of them pretty good.
You know what? Here's the honest feedback. I can't think of anyone that I would say, oh, I don't want to pick up their call. But that has happened in the past. So I will say that we have made some decisions along the way where we have had clients that have come on board that it hasn't been the right fit for them, the experience that we're wanting to present and deliver through whatever it might be. It may have been, certain maintenance that they weren't prepared to do, and then we've had to come in pretty firm with them, some to the point where they wouldn't meet minimal housing standards. So then I've had to say, well, look, I'm really sorry, we're going to have to part ways because we're not prepared to take this risk on. So I do think it does happen from time to time. And I have been asked the question, I guess you can never say no, that it will never happen. But at this point, I will say I've really enjoyed growing the rent roll from scratch, my own way and on my own terms, if that makes sense, because then we've built it and designed it in a way that I know is effective for the industry, but it's also supports those investors that are wanting that experience. Not every owner wants a complete digital online experience. And I have found that through the process that some of them become really overwhelmed with it, and then they just decide that they want to go with another agent because they're going to post out their statements, which you would think, why would that be so important to you and so arcade? And I've learned along the way you have to just go, that's okay. We're not the agent for them, and be okay with that and move on to the next client it is. So, and
that's very mature, and it's a smart way to operate and work. How do you find, because you work on behalf of the landlord of the investor, however, investors are often, in other states and, you have a digital relationship with them, whereas the tenant is probably a little bit more of an emotive relationship because you live in the same area, probably see them around town and a lot more connected with it. So how do you balance the sort of, representing the needs of the tenant on the basis that you are essentially the proxy of the landlord? It can be tough, people having challenges and don't want rents put up and all that sort of. How do you deal with all of that?
Look, I'll go down 2 forms. The first one is making sure you have plenty of notes, internal notes on file, and that's obviously really available in the software, which is fantastic. So you can do internal notes that you can go into in the overview, as you know, but there's also one that's like the pop-up one that you can do. And we have clear communication in there so that if any team members first having communication with this client, but they've not had that personal experience before, they can get a feel from that based on the notes. So I think it's very important if you aren't just complete portfolio based where there's only one person running it and you've got a handful of people, that how in which this client, whether it's the landlord and the tenant, because we do have some tenants that have experienced DV, so we have more protective mechanisms and steps that we have on their files because they need to be safe and protected within their homes as well, so that people don't find them, making sure you have very clear and transparent notes in your software. And then on the flip side of that, it's actually picking up the phone at the key times where it's really important to communicate with them. Now, this doesn't work with every landlord because, as I mentioned, we have one of our clients that's in Dubai. So they just prefer that all of our communication with them is email and very transactional that way. But we have done Zoom meetings in the past where that has helped be able to go through certain motions. But in a lot of cases, that's their preferred method. I would suggest that easily still 95% of our rent roll are happy with me to pick up the phone and have a conversation with them. They don't need just complete email correspondence. And what I maximise on, which I found has been really beneficial in our business, is that I'm currently still the main point of contact for lease renewals. When you're talking around that time of, like you've just, alluded to, is the rent increasing, which is what we're seeing at the moment, and what are your intentions? We have three types of investors that are within our portfolio. We have the investor that's in a position, and I can say that we have one client that has multiple properties. He has no debt over those properties, and he doesn't tend to increase the rents there. So those tenants have clearly worked that out and never moved because they've never had that increase. And for him, he's satisfied with that income that's coming in. So if I had a property manager that was just at him all the time saying, just increase your rent, that would really annoy him, because it's not his choice of how he's wanting to have his income and grow with his investments. And then you have others that do a slower increase, and then others that I need to push right up to the maximum rent that I can achieve. I'm bleeding money at the moment. Like I can't keep up with my mortgage repayments. And you're having a completely different conversation with your client over here to the one in the middle, to the original one who's in a great financial position. So with all of the lease renewals, I'll explain to them, would you like me to go through what's happening in the current market now? Where are you positioned? Is a rent review going to be our conversation point? What do you need to achieve? What's most important to you with this next stage of this lease process? And I think we miss that sometimes as property managers, because a lot of businesses with that lease renewal will just send out the email, here's your appraisal, here's what you can achieve. You come back to us and confirm in writing, or you come back to us and sign this document, and we'll keep doing the work for you. And they're completely left in the dark. And they don't have the opportunity to properly explain, because maybe they can't get the property manager on the phone, or they were actually expecting that to be a conversation over the phone. And I think that that's an area that we do miss as an industry, and one that I found I've been able to maximise on in our business.
Yeah, it sounds like you're have created a really good business there that's growing, and picking up the phone is so important for investors. So much gets lost in translation. So you need to know the intent of the landlord, where they sit, so you can best represent them with the tenant. Now, it's a growing agency, which is cool, and you've chosen the managed platform to grow it on. How would you sort of, just in closing, how has that allowed you to sort of get better outcomes for your landlord clients, and also, I guess, your tenants? I know it's direct and automated payments, so landlords get paid straight away, but how else has it really helped you create a growth agency?
I think for me, as a principal, it's put a lot less stress and pressure on being worried about daily processing and mid-month processing and end-of-month processing and end-of-financial year processing around a trust account. That would be certainly a benefit for myself as a principal, for any other principals that are listening out there. I'm not a highly analytical or numbers-based, and that's never been my main success. So I think that was one, like the main thing that really attracted me to the software program from day one. For our tenants, I would suggest, and this can kind of stem into staff as well, I've had 2 staff members, yes, just 2, that have been clients of the business. So they've been tenants of the business as well as working within our business as well. And they've loved both experiences on both sides of things. So as a tenant, they feel it's been really easy to be able to communicate with the business, know where things are up to, whether it be a maintenance that's operating and progresses are happening along there, or it could be when their next routine inspection's due. That information's all really transparent in the software. With our staff side, we find, I think, where it's really beneficial, again, for the team as well as the landlord, is around our rent arrears processing side. So for us, we're just shy of 300 properties. I haven't looked at the arrears today, but I would suggest that from what I've seen over the last couple of weeks, we tend to have anywhere from 0 in arrears, funnily enough, up to maybe 10. There's 2 that we've been working with at the moment that have experienced some financial hardship, which the owner's aware of that, and they've got their payment plans in place and are back on track. But it's very rare for us to have consistently tenants that are always, 3 to 5 days. So we are on the phone to them. We're not leaving it down to just emails going out of the software to fix that problem. The list is refined, and it can be because of how fast the payments are processed. So it's very easy to say to the tenant, well, if you did just pay that an hour ago, it should be showing now. when you're using this payment platform. So it does put a bit more pressure on them that way. And one thing that we do is that when we do see the tenants obviously falling a few days behind, we'll let them know, because sometimes something hasn't gone wrong in their world. They've forgot to press the pay button, or they've changed something with their bank, which means that their automatic direct debits just stop for some random reason. So we can kind of guide them with that. So I think that definitely the payment side, I would suggest, as you can see across most connective areas, is very powerful in the software. And I think so as well, having the images of the property, on each one as you go in, and you've got that transparency. They're smaller things, but as a visual perspective, it creates a really enjoyable experience for the team and for the tenant and for the landlord, because we have actually some tenants that are landlords as well in our business too, funnily enough, and they can comfortably see both scenarios. They can see what they need to know as a tenant, and they can see what they need to know as a landlord. And then we also have some landlords that have multiple properties as well, so they can comfortably see all those properties in the software and keep up to date with them.
Really cool. I feel like just buying a property in Hervey Bay just so I can get you to manage it for me.
I will help you find one. Don't you worry.
I don't want to alienate every other property manager up there, but as a property investor, you're saying all the stuff that really resonates with me. And the important thing is getting paid your rent and getting your rent quickly, which is one of many things. If anyone sort of likes the sound of what you guys are doing and how you're building out a dedicated rent roll to service property investors in Hervey Bay, how do people find you if they go, is it easy to switch property managers up in Queensland? It's a bit of paperwork, isn't it?
Yeah, so the best way to find us is through our website, which is activeagents.com.au. You can just obviously do that through Google and it would go straight to our website. We're on a handful of the online social media platforms as well. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, and we're even on TikTok. Sometimes we find time to do some interesting videos and updates just to keep connected with what's going on in the industry as well as the community. When it comes to obviously making the decision, if you are deciding, and that's whether that's in Hervey Bay or just in general, certainly across Queensland as such, I would suggest to utilise your time to research the agents that you're looking for, and then you would have a termination notice period of 30 days. And it's a big decision. I always say to investors, it's a big decision to make when you're choosing to change agents. It's got to be something really there burning inside of you that you're just completely done and you're ready for that change. And, we have had that happen before within the business, and it's not great when it does happen, especially if you don't have the answers for them. But at the same time, I think that, something wasn't resonating with them, right, whether it's something that we can fix in our brand or we can't. And I've come to terms with the fact that we can't always fix everyone's problems, because sometimes what they want fixed, we can't achieve, whether it be as a business, or we can't step over legislation and make our own rules at the same time.
Got to play by the rules.
Yes. Yeah. So, it feels like it's an overwhelming process for an investor to change, but effectively then going and choosing the right agent, they can make it a really smooth transition for you. And I will say that when I have experienced that in active agents, but even prior to starting active agents, each time it's been the same scenario with the client where they just don't feel like they actually know what's going on, and they're very concerned because they don't have a clear understanding of what's happening with their investment. So if you can be an agent that can be as visually transparent as possible, and we've just stepped into the space of making sure all of our routines now are having virtual tours included as well. And it was a big step to do that because we know it's going to take a bit more time. That's the service that our clients are going to see, which is going to make it really difficult, for them to want to choose to find another agency in the area, because I know that's not happening across other agents that are potentially using the same software with Inspection Express. So, I think that over time, within your heart, if you need to change it, if it's not right, the options there and available, and a property manager can make that a really smooth transition for you.
There you go. That's Tara Bradbury from Active Agents, activeagents.com. There you go and check them out. If you've got properties up in Hervey Bay, this sounds like the sort of organisation you want managing them. Tara, thanks for your time today. If I get up that way, I'll make sure I come and say good day.
Please do. We've got plenty of coffee shops and restaurants around where our office is, so we'd love to show you our new space. We've only been in here since January this year. So, we'd love to show you and,
Yeah, and keep an eye on those property when property buyers start arriving. Something's happening. Always up. We like buyers agents up there. But thanks for tuning in, everyone. Smartpropertyinvestment.com.au is where you can go and find heaps of information like this. We're on social media as well, Smart Property HQ or Smart Property Investment. You'll track us down there. We'll see you again next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.
Feeling trapped by rising interest payments? Escape from mortgage prison with expert refinancing assistance from Finny. We have helped hundreds of borrowers break free from higher loan repayments by finding a more suitable loan. Our expert team can quickly assess your situation, and if there's a better lender available, we'll find it fast. Don't delay. Call today. Speak to a Finny mortgage specialist on 02 8866 2444 or visit our website at www.finny.com.au.